What we call mental illness isn't some timeless medical fact, but a concept that our society actually invented. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack exactly how he says that happened. Right from the get-go, Foucault hits us with this quote from Pascal, and, it just sets the stage. It immediately forces you to ask, wait a minute, who gets to decide what's sane and what isn't? What if the very act of drawing that line in the sand is its own kind of madness? And that, right there, is our core question. See, Foucault isn't telling some simple story of medical progress. No, he's asking something much deeper. How was madness itself created as a thing to be studied? How did we surgically separate it from reason? And more importantly, what did we lose when we drew that line? He calls this whole project an archaeology of silence. The idea is absolutely fascinating. He says that before psychiatry started its monologue about madness, there used to be a dialogue with it. So our job is to grab our shovels and dig through history to find the exact moment that conversation was silenced. So our excavation begins at the end of the Middle Ages with a sickness that absolutely haunted the European mind: leprosy. 19,000. According to one chronicler, that's how many leper houses, or leprosariums, dotted the landscape of Christendom at their peak. I mean, can you imagine? It was this vast network of exclusion designed to push the afflicted to the absolute edges of society. But then a strange thing happened. By the 15th and 16th centuries, leprosy just started to vanish from Europe. And all of a sudden, these huge, ominous structures stood completely empty. A void was created. And this, right here, is Foucault's crucial insight. The disease itself might have disappeared, but the idea of exclusion didn't. The physical buildings, the social rituals of casting people out, the whole symbolic role of the feared outsider, all of that was left behind, just waiting for a new group of people to fill it.
So who filled that void? Well, it's not who you might think. During the Renaissance, those old leper houses stayed empty. Instead, society found this new and kind of fascinating way to deal with its mad. It set them adrift.
And this wasn't just some metaphor from a famous painting. No, this was real. Cities literally handed their madmen over to sailors. It was this strange ritual of purification and passage. Trapped on a boat, the madman becomes the ultimate passenger, right? Belonging to neither the land nor the sea, basically a prisoner of his own departure. And this shows you the era's completely contradictory view of madness. On one hand, it held this terrifying cosmic truth. It was a vision of the world's end, a kind of secret knowledge. But on the other hand, it was just human folly, something to laugh at, a subject for moral criticism. Reason and unreason were still talking to each other, even if it was a pretty difficult conversation. But then, around the middle of the 17th century, everything changed, radically and abruptly. Europe started building walls. This is the beginning of what Foucault calls the Great Confinement. I mean, this movement spread like wildfire. In just a few decades, massive houses of confinement shot up in cities all across Europe. The wandering freedom of the ship of fools was over. The age of the asylum had begun. And the scale was just staggering. The Hôpital Général in Paris, for instance, locked up 6,000 people within just a few years of opening. Just think about that. 1% of the entire city's population locked away almost overnight. Now this is the crucial point. These were not hospitals. They weren't run by doctors. They were more like a new instrument of power, somewhere between the police and the courts. And they were designed to sweep up a whole new category of people: the poor, the unemployed, criminals, and, mixed right in among them, the mad. So what was the logic here? Why just lump all these different people together? Well, Foucault argues it was driven by a new moral outrage, a condemnation of a brand new sin. This quote from the founding document of the Paris Institution, it says it all. The main target wasn't sickness or even crime, really. The great enemy, the source of all social disorder, was idleness. So this creates a whole new moral equation. In this new era, work becomes almost sacred. So being idle wasn't just an economic problem anymore. It was a moral failure, a revolt against the entire social order. And confinement, with forced labor, became the tool for this ethical cleansing. So what was the ultimate consequence of this great confinement? This is the final layer of our archaeological dig. the moment that dialogue between reason and madness was broken for good. And this, right here, is the heart of Foucault's whole argument. In the Renaissance, madness spoke, and reason had to listen. But the Great Confinement shattered that dialogue. Reason now dictates from on high. It no longer engages with unreason. It just silences it, studies it like an object under a microscope, and forces it to conform. The archaeology of silence is complete. And the result of all this is huge. By being locked away with the poor and the idle, madness was stripped of all its old complex meanings. It wasn't about cosmic truth or tragedy anymore. It got redefined in purely negative terms as the enemy of these new bourgeois values: productivity, social order, and the family. So you see, Foucault's history doesn't just stay in the past. It forces us to look right at our own time, at our own certainties. If the whole category of madness was constructed to uphold a specific social order, well, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What uncomfortable truths, what different ways of being might we be silencing with our modern definitions of mental health?